Good morning, everyone. I wanted to get a video out earlier this morning. I'm seeing some things moving around. I want to start this video out on the stock market technical analysis a little bit different. I'm going to go through some of these individual stocks and some potential trade ideas, and then we'll loop back and go through the general market analysis. We'll look at gold, and we'll go ahead and wrap. So guys, if you guys find value in the content, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a stock pick you want me to take a look at. You know, I do scan through some of those, and leave me a thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up button if you can. I do appreciate that. I know I have to ask for it every day, but I think that's just kind of standard protocol on these videos. Okay, so we're going to start here with BABA. I've got an hourly chart. Now, on the hourly chart, we basically had this downtrend right here, and you can see that I've kind of marked out all the tags of resistance that we hit. You can see today, this hour, we just broke out. So I think we're probably breaking out right now, and we have a buy signal. As I zoom out to the daily chart on BABA, we've been looking for that buy signal on this one for several days, so I've talked about it multiple times. But you can see on the daily chart, my momentum indicators, and again, these momentum indicators, the PPO and the RSI, if you don't have PPO, you can use the MACD, moving average convergence divergence, and they're leading indicators. At least the patterns that we look for give us a leading indication that price is about to move in a certain direction before price is actually moved. Okay, you know, it doesn't give you a guarantee, but it does set the conditions that are needed for that price action to actually occur. And these are bullish divergence price actions. See how the momentum right here, see how these are trending up? The lines are trending up on the RSI. We're making higher lows and higher highs, all right there. And meanwhile, price continued to drift lower and just made a slightly lower low right there in price. So that's bullish divergence. Momentum is diverging or going in the opposite direction from price, okay? So that's a key thing to know. Again, I teach all these concepts in my technical analysis course, my stock market course. I put that together about 1.5 years ago. Link in the description below. I've had a lot of good feedback on it, so check that out if you're interested. And again, the bullish divergence on this BABA is indicating that that price is potentially about to reverse from this downtrend for an uptrend. So what we look for is a break of trend line resistance. We have resistance on this trend line right here, and I showed it there on the hourly chart. We're looking for a break of that. So you can see as I zoom in, starting to break out on the daily chart. So let's see how this holds up throughout the day. Just play it tick by tick. But ultimately, I'd look for more buying to come in and this to break out. That would be the buy signal I'd be looking for. If we get that, then we have a level of resistance right here at about 130.33. And if we get through that, I think we're heading straight up to 161. About 161, which is a gap fill right here. See that big gap? We typically are going to run up and fill that gap. So that would be the target on this rally. And I think it could be a pretty good trade if we get that buy signal coming in. From where we're at now, that's still about a 28% to the upside trade. Okay, let's look at Rio. So I've talked about this one for a couple weeks now. And again, that's how trade setups, swing trading and trend trading, oftentimes you see the setup, and the setup will be there for a few weeks, and then when the trade starts to play out, it takes time, and that's what this happens. That's what this happens to be. So our buy signal was back here on December 2nd, and basically from that moment in time, we're up, up almost 7.5%, 8%. We're climbing higher. Each and every day, it just continues to kind of move higher. So it tells me that there's no reason to get out of the trade. Everything looks good. We haven't even hit our first level of resistance, which is right there, 71.19. Okay, as I zoom out, you can see that was former support back here on this daily chart, and then we broke down, and it was resistance, 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 breakdown. So I think we're heading right into that level, and we'll probably get a pullback at that point. So what I'm likely going to do is close out my trade as we get closer to that level, and then look for that pullback, and then we can determine whether it makes sense to recycle back into it or just move on. But that's what I'm looking for. The trade's worked out very nicely so far. Let's move on. Oh, and just one more thing. There's your bullish divergence. I have that marked out right there. So that almost always shows up for every trade setup that I look for. I'm looking for those divergences before the price action shows up. The difference between this trading style and kind of chasing momentum is, I'm looking for the trade before it actually shows up in price. Where chasing momentum, people often just look for the things that are going up and they buy it, hoping that it continues to go up, and then they can sell it. But usually momentum traders don't really know exactly when to sell it, and a lot of the time, most of the guys that jump onto a trade late, they end up holding the bag, and it's just the early people that end up making most of the money. So I prefer this style. I want to point out this one, bigger picture. This is Carvana, and I've talked about this, but look at this daily chart. This is your bull market in Carvana. It started back in 2017. You can see all the tags of support that this one had. Now I X this one out, this COVID drop, because this was kind of a rare event, a liquidity event. And it's just outside of the normal data pattern. So you can see all, a solid constructed market. We've got this as our base trend line support. And then when COVID hit, it was this big crash. So we just kind of X that out. And moving in, you can see this is where our trend line reacted again. So the market was reacting on that trend line. And we had a sell signal. I have it circled right there. There's your sell signal. Of course, that came with, negative divergence. Not a big negative divergence, but it did kind of start to show up right there. Bigger picture, though, that I want to point out is this has broken the bullish trend, a multi-year bullish trend. And I've noted a lot of these high-flying tech stocks that aren't really profitable, and this is one of them, they've all taken it, they're all down 40, 50, 60%. And this one's, from the highs, this one is definitely down quite a bit. It's down 44%, but it's also just starting to break its bull market trend. So I think this one has likely started a downtrend. Where do we go on this? It's hard to say, but I could easily, each one of these reaction highs, I just look at these reaction highs and mark those out as potential targets. That could be a final target, maybe 115.81. Wanted to point that out, that Carvana looks like it's just continuing the downtrend. And Etsy, just like Etsy, we pointed this one out. I talked about it yesterday. Now the sell signal came 2 days ago on Monday. There's your sell signal, break of trendline support. Okay, that break of trendline support is what we were looking for. Here's your trend line. See, support, 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 and then you kind of had support all through here as well. And then a break, nice solid break with a daily close, weak daily close. That's your sell signal, and more selling coming on, behind it. So what I'd look for, you're probably going to get a bounce because we are at a support level. You can see, let me kind of see that we had a reaction here. It's not the best support level though. We might want to head a little lower before we get an actual bounce. Next level of support is about 181.50. So if we break right here and just look at yesterday's lows, you break below yesterday's lows, start closing hourly candles below yesterday's lows, and you're likely heading right down to that 181.50 zone. And then at that point, maybe we're going to get a bounce up to, and just use these levels on the way up, But ultimately, the way I see it, it's sell to rip. So as you fall down to support, you could cover a short trade. I am short this thing right now. And as you fall down to support, you could cover, and then as it bounces into resistance, you could re-add back your short. That's a strategy right there. So let's move on. Qualcomm, I think this thing's ripe to move down. We don't have a super good solid sell signal. What you might want to do, let me point out what I'm seeing right now on the daily chart here. You'll see, look at this negative divergence just dropping off. The momentum's just clearly just dropping lower. Today, they popped it up and made a new divergent high. There it is right there. That's a new higher high in price. Basically just an equal or slightly higher high than the previous high right here on way less momentum. So just another divergent high. Nothing's changed on these pops. These are divergent highs. They have high probabilities of failing. We also had this trend line here, and they're popping it into that. We're kind of just doing this backtest thing where we're popping it, failing, popping it, failing. One of these times, the market's going to start to sell this thing down, at least most likely. Nothing's guaranteed. One way you might want to do it to flip to the hourly chart is you could maybe just mark out this kind of secondary trend line that this thing's doing and wait for an hourly close below that. That should do the trick. You know, if you get a break below that, I think you're heading straight down to 171.50. Again, probably get a little bit of a bounce there, but ultimately this thing I think is actually heading all the way down to 139.15. Right, and from where we're at right now, that's a move of about 26%. So I like this. I have a short position on this. It's just a starting short position. And I'm looking to add to it. I'll probably add to it on the break of an hourly close below this trend line right here. Okay, so there's something to look for. Clean negative divergence, breaks. We have, it looks like a good setup. And, you know, again, just that final tipping point to get us over the line should probably set this thing in motion to the downside. Okay, DraftKings. This is a bullish setup. Now, I've been bearish on DraftKings for a while. Again, all the way back here, I marked this out back here and said I think that was probably the top in DraftKings, and it has so far proven to be accurate. So DraftKings is in a bear market, clearly clearly moving down. But now we look for a bear market rally, and these can be extremely powerful. So they're good trading vehicles, and that's really what I'm looking for. It's just a trade, not an investment or anything. But you can see here we've got clear bullish divergence that's been building now on the RSI and the PPO. You see that? See how the momentum's moving up and price is just drifting lower? So I think we're having, ultimately what I'm looking for, let's flip to the hourly and just tighten up our trend line. But some sort of a break to the upside, a buy signal of this trend line. We can kind of mark it out. You know, we're starting to kind of chop through it a little bit right there. But ultimately what I'm looking for is a big bullish green candle breaking above this downtrend line as our buy signal. Now the momentum indicators are telling me that it's coming soon. I don't know when it's going to be there, so I just wait. But I'm anticipating it. So when I see it, I know what the strategy, when you see something, you know you can act. You know what you're looking for, and when it shows up, you can act. And so that's what I'm looking for. That's a trade setup, not an actionable trade. I am not long this thing, but if I see that buy signal, I'm going to go ahead and get long. And then we'll go to the daily chart to look for some resistance levels. So we've got, there's a little bit of a level right there. Let me get rid of this little blue line right here. It's basically at first level of resistance about 30.67. Next level of resistance about 35.45. I don't think we'd probably get much higher than that, but final level of resistance is probably up here around, it's kind of a zone. It's really like this big zone right here, but top of the zone, 44.50. Okay, but, if you break now, the first, we could have about a 30% rally up to that second target, which is about 35.60. I could see that as being a pretty solid rally target. So that's what I'm looking for on that one. Not actionable yet, and again, we just need to wait on that one. A subscriber asked me about VIACOM, so we'll go ahead and look at this chart. So this is what I got. Here's a big level on VIACOM. It's about 42. We dip below it there. We can see it was support. It was really support right through here, and then once it broke, it was during COVID. It was resistance right there, and then here's your COVID crash, and then it recovered, and then it's basically been here's your hedge fund blow up. They had a big hedge fund that blew up on this, and it's been chopping through this level. You can see lots of reactions, kind of consolidating below it, and then it started to sell off. Now, recently, as I zoom in, you can see there's your bullish divergence. See the RSI moving up. There it is, bullish divergence, and the PPO is moving up too, while price continued to drift lower. So as you zoom in on the hourly chart, really your buy signal, I think, came back here, right there on basically that moment in time. That was your buy signal. It's a little bit farther away from that, so I wouldn't really be interested in going long because I'm too far away from my risk level. They could just sell this thing down. It's already up from that buy signal, 11%, so I'm not interested in it, but I could see if you're already long this thing, then I see it trading up to probably that 42 area of resistance. Now a break above that, and that's bullish. You start to get you got to be careful because you can see how they were chopping through it a bunch. We might have some more of that. It might run up there and kind of chop through. So you'd want to see something definitively breaking above that. Maybe a string of a couple days where it's starting to rally. Or better yet, what I'd probably wait for is if it does break, wait for it to come back in, test it and hold, start to move higher. And that would be your buy signal for a longer term trade. But until then, I do think this is probably going to chop around and trade up to that 42. And AVGO, this is a short trade. Everything looks good. I don't see any real reason why this is not going to continue to the downside. So again, AVGO on the daily chart. Here's your up. Here's the trend line that I've got marked out. You can see I've circled all the tags of support. You need at least 3 tags, 3 data points to give you a trend line, and the more the better. We broke. It was resistance here, and then it went parabolic straight up to the trend line again, where that should be major resistance. Looking at the momentum indicators, we didn't have bearish divergence on the PPO on the daily. We did have it on the RSI here, and then as I zoom in on the hourly, we did have it on both. So I've got that kind of marked out on the hourly. So in short term, yes, we have bearish divergence up in this area. And then going back to the daily, you can see there's your bearish PPO crossover as well. See how we're crossing to the bearish side? That's confirmation basically of this divergence. So all in all, it looks good. First target gap fill right there at 593.08. And from where we're at now, that's a drop of about, it's 9.5%, 10% roughly. We might overshoot that a little bit. But that would be your first area where you're likely going to get some sort of a bounce. I think this thing's likely going to head much lower and possibly all the way down here to 419, about 420, which could be a drop from where we're at now of about 35%. All right, so those are key levels to look at. I don't see any reason why this is not going to continue lower. And Tesla, I think Tesla has one more move to the upside. What I'd be looking for on Tesla is it is at resistance. So you can see this trend line, see all the tags of support right here on this trend line. And then we finally broke, and it's basically been resistance. And we chopped through it a little bit, but it failed. That was a false breakout right up in here. Let me kind of clear this out a little bit. And we broke, and we're back at resistance. Now, I think we're going to get one more little pop and make, basically trade right up into about the 1235 area. All right, maybe just slightly higher up to 1245. 1235 to 1245, I think, is going to be the top in Tesla. So I think we're going to pop up there. And if we do that anytime soon, it's going to look like this. Maybe we'll pop and then that will be negative divergence. So we'll have a new higher high in price, and yet the momentum is clearly dropping off. So look at that momentum just dropping off. I just want to see that higher high in price to help confirm that divergence. So we don't have negative divergence yet. What we have is a lower high in price. So here's your former high, here's a lower high, and we have a lower high in momentum. So nothing's diverging. Now if price moves above the previous high and momentum can't do that as well, which right now we're pretty much guaranteed to have negative divergence if we get any kind of upward movement in price, then I think that's going to be the top in Tesla, and we'll look for a short trade up here. All right, so things to look for on that. Let's get into some general market analysis, and then we'll wrap up. Triple Qs, again, more downside today. Again, as far as I can tell, this is the level we're heading to, 382.82. We basically are just continuing that right now. So the trend line, see the trend line marked in blue, support all through here. I think we're going down to that trend line. All right, so I think it's putting us at that 383, 382 area, somewhere right in there. And at that point, we'll look for what's going to happen next. A break of that trend line, and we've got bigger things going on. I think we're starting a bear market. If we don't break it, then we're probably going to, can just continue the longer-term trend, which is up. Okay, that's all I see on that. And then SPY. SPY's at major resistance right up in this area. As I roll out on the daily, this resistance comes all the way from pretty much the entire bull market starting back in 2009. And you can see the resistance, all those tags of this upward price channel. So as I zoom in Now here's the Fed playing games. The market wanted to go into a bear market back in 2018. The Fed wouldn't let it. It wanted to go back into a bear market in 2020. The Fed pumped it way up here. So now I think if we're going to start a bear market, we start it from way up here. And it could mean, honestly, that we're going to hit some of these targets that I've had. Look at what's going on here. I mean, you've got, these are targets. This is kind of your 2015 deer market area. These would be potential targets. We also have this wedge pattern. So if we're going to start a bear market, we could sell all the way down to maybe this area right here. That might be about it, you know, for what the bear market would be now at this point. But still, that's going to be, there's going to be some major problems if that happens. That's bigger picture stuff. As of right now, though, going back, look at this channel. And as I zoom in, you can see we're right there at resistance. We're at resistance, major resistance, with negative divergence. See the momentum how it's dropping off? All right. So that's the area that's objective to short up here for sure for a move down to the bottom of the channel. And then obviously if we break the channel, we can start to look at bigger picture things. Until you break the channel, there's just nothing bigger picture, but still you could short down to the channel, maybe cover your short, and then get short again if you start to break that channel, or flip long down here at the bottom. And we'll flip over to gold, and then I'm going to wrap up. Okay, gold is at major, it's kind of this key resistance area. It's about 1833, so you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4 tags of that, and we're basically contending it with it again. We haven't broke it. So until we break that, we need to, until we break that, we're at kind of a resistance zone. Not an area I'd be loading up on gold or gold miners. I typically look to add to the gold miners when they come down and hit support zones. Right here, I'm just waiting to see if we can break. And if we break, then, maybe you can start to add to some miners and gold positions on a break of that resistance. But until we see that, we got to just kind of wait that out. So we're just range bound, kind of chopping within this range right here with a couple fake outs. That was a bull trap. There's a bear trap, another bear trap. So lots of whipsaw signals, but ultimately the range is right there. So we look for a break of that. Probably look for a break of this downtrend line as well. But I think if we break to the upside, we're going to get it. And that's all I have, everyone. So again, leave me a thumbs up. Hopefully you find some value, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.